Hello, everybody. I'm your host of WTF, and that is What the FixedOPS to all of you out there. And I'm joined today by...
Hi, everybody. I'm Charity, and I'm your co-host here today. We're really excited. We have Allie Peters with us today. She's the VP of Service Operations at Cavender Auto Group. She's also a 40 under 40 winner and a Golden Wrench Award Visionary winner. So, Allie, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, we're so glad to have you. It's really an honor. You've been kind of making the circuit out there.
Just a little bit.
In addition to all the circuits, do you drive to all the stores too?
I do. There's one store that's about 5 hours away. So sometimes it's driving if I need either uninterrupted phone time or alley time. But the other half of the time I'll fly up there.
Well, then that must be the Cavender Nissan in Rockwall.
It is. Yes, sir.
Yeah. It's right in my backyard.
Yep.
Yeah, it is a beautiful store.
It really is.
And Demetrius is the GM there now?
He is, yep. And then we've got our new service manager, Ray. He and Demetrius work together in San Marcos, and they're making the move up to Rockwall. So we're really excited about this next chapter there.
Well, we're excited about all that you're doing. We're excited about the visionary that you are. We're excited that... I don't know what it's like, obviously, to be a female, but to be a female with your credentials, vice president of an automotive group, a successful automotive group such as yours, I don't know what you had to fight through to get where you're at or what it was like and et cetera. So I just want to ask you, tell everybody who you are and what you're most proud of.
Oh, well, that's a loaded question. I am Allie Peters. I'm the Vice President of Service Operations for the Cavender Auto Group. And as far as what am I most proud of, honestly, I am proud of the teams that I've been able to be a part of and be involved in growing people. And I think now, probably more than ever, I have such pride for the teams in my service departments and just their overall continued effort and passion and success. And I feel like I have so many people that are in leadership positions in our service departments that really truly embody that idea of good enough never is, but not in the way of feeling like we're on this 30-day cycle and I'm never good enough, but within themselves. They have that intrinsic competitiveness within themselves and they want to be better and better. And so just to be surrounded by such incredible people that we keep pushing each other to be better is probably the thing I am the most proud of right now.
Well, you're also very enthusiastic and that's contagious. It really is. And I know a little bit about you. I've gotten to know you much more over the last couple of years, watched you grow a little bit, but also in person and watched you operate and how you interact with people. And it's truly something to see. For those of you that haven't met her, I'm sure you will before long, but she is certainly a force to be reckoned with. And once again, we are glad to have you on here talking about a force. How did you get here? What's the driving force? Where did this start? How did you end up in fixed operations of all things?
So it was an accident, which is why I laugh. When I graduated from college, we were just coming out of the recession, and so jobs were harder to find. And I had wanted to be a lot of things in my life, but in college, there wasn't one clear path as to the career that I was going to pursue. And I studied communication and psychology. And as you have alluded to, I really like people a lot. And so I figured if I could learn more about people and learn more about how to communicate with people, then I was going to be set up for success in wherever I ended up. And so for me, my cousin is a year younger than me in school. And between her junior and senior year in college, she did an internship in the DFW area with another automotive group who's really tied into Texas A&M. And on her second week, she called me and said, Allie, you need to apply. And I said, what for? And she said, it doesn't even matter. I'm not even going to tell you what it is. All I'm going to tell you is you stay really busy and you talk to a lot of people. And I signed up. So I applied and I went and interviewed, and that's where we are. That's how we got here.
Well, you've come a long way.
Yes.
Most people don't. I mean, there's a lot more women coming into the industry, and I think it's phenomenal. And I think they always need to be lifted up, but not, they need to be treated like everybody else, right? Not just because they're female, but because of their talents and abilities. And I know that you are. It's just like with Charity, honestly, and she hears this all the time, but we would not be where we're at today if it wasn't for her and what she's contributed and what she's done, because most of the time I don't know what I'm doing. And she keeps me on the straight and narrow. So anyway, Charity, do you have a question for Allie?
Well, sure. Allie, I have heard a rumor that you guys have been having some record months lately. And it sounds pretty exciting. What do you attribute to that success on that side?
Oh, well, I'm happy to report the rumor is true.
All right.
Y'all heard it here.
That's right. Yes. We, I love this question. So I think for me, there are a handful of things that we have put in place in the last few months that I believe have contributed to our success. I would say some of the more, logical, rational, factual things are we implemented some minimum standards at the beginning of the year for both of our advisors and our technicians. And they weren't these just outrageous requirements, but they were, if you want to rent your bay or if you want to rent the desk as a service advisor, this is the minimum we need from you. Anything above and beyond, we're going to celebrate. We're going to be happy. But if you want to just get the opportunity to keep coming and playing. And I think that really helped, because we did have a few people who decided that they didn't want to stay on the team because they weren't willing to do the minimum. But everyone else that was hovering around that line, they just needed a little for a little push, and they had it in them. And so we've seen this tremendous upswing. I would say with that, we also really focused on daily intentional closing. A lot of times departments use that power close on a Friday or Saturday or the end of the month. And, it's the end of the month and the day is crazy and we all have to find every last dollar. But the reality is if we're intentional about doing it every single day, the last day of the month is just another day. And so we really focused hard on that at the end of last year. And we were able to see that in January and then again in February. And so February was a record month on a very short month. Yes. And I think the outside of the black and white answer, it goes back to the people. I think I have some incredible leaders on our team, and I believe that they understand that large vision and are bought in. And because they believed in it, it's very easy for that to translate to their teams. And so we've set these really high standards and these really high goals, and we're all committed to reaching them. So
I love it.
Thank you.
It's great. I don't know if I've really, that I can recall, heard about renting a bay or a desk, but I like that. Is that something that I'm just missing out on, or is that just some new term? Because I haven't heard that, and I've been in this business 39 years. I've never heard that.
Someone, and maybe it's this female thing, maybe I had to teach us differently, but early on in my career, I was, it was explained to me that when you are looking at your service department and the production, primarily of your technician, that when you have all of your bays full of technicians, you have to start making decisions. And really, I think now we're making the decisions before all the bays are full, which is a little more proactive. But the idea was, at a certain point, if you have a technician who's only producing 50% of what is able to be produced out of that bay, you may have someone that can do 80%. And so unfortunately that person no longer gets to stay. And it was explained to me in a class that beauticians, I think is, I don't know what they're called now, my hair lady, but a lot of the structure of a hair salon is a person owns it and then someone comes in, they're their own operator, but they are renting that bay or renting that chair. And so in their head, when they're running their business, the first thing that they have to think of is, what do I have to produce to be able to pay my rent for my chair? And then anything above and beyond that is what I get to keep. And so we've never actually implemented a rent system, but we like to think of it, it's, we're letting you run in your own small business under the umbrella of our organization. We're giving you the cars, we're giving you the marketing, we're giving you the software and the phones and the building. And now it's up to you to do something with all that we've given you. So that idea of you get to stay if you give us what we need to rent that space.
I love it. There is a paradigm shift taking place in fixed operation in the entire industry, where variables not siloed and fixed is not siloed, but working closer together. I know that is the culture that you have, because I know I've lived here for so long. Cavender is just like a household name, because of my travels. But the speed of the pack is set by the leader. And I know you're a team player, and I do believe together everyone achieves more. But you have instilled something and a psyche, or even if somebody that's renting that space is at 50 and not at 80, do you give them him or her a chance? How do you work with somebody like with you first meet and there's a precedence of what you would like to happen? How do you get somebody's buy-in? That's what I want to know.
So this one's fun because we're now experiencing it. So we rolled these out officially January 1st of 2024. So we're really only 2.5 months in. With that being said, now every time we interview someone to come and join our team, as part of the interview process, we're actually presenting the minimum standards. And so they are, day one, before they even accept the position, they're agreeing to the rules of our team. So to start now, it's already, that line is in the sand. And they get to say, yes, I want in, or no, I don't. And then when they're on the team, now we get to say, hey, remember when we interviewed you? And remember when we talked about this? And remember when you agreed to it?
Sure.
All we're coming and doing is saying, you said yes to this. It's my job to make sure that you're living up to the yes that you already committed to.
I think that is really, really powerful. I still think even with that being said, I think equally important, do you have an onboarding process in addition to that? So you lay out what the expectations are, and probably the minimum expectations. And what is your onboarding process, and how imperative is that also to help them understand what they're doing, the culture, and to help them excel?
Absolutely. So we are constantly improving our processes and our systems. And so about a year ago, we brought in a recruiter in-house. And so he, for 9 months or so, was operating on his own for all 8 stores, for all departments. And he was doing a great job. He understood what we wanted, where we were headed, the kind of people we wanted on our team. And so I felt like he was an extension of me and our leadership team, which was great. And I will say that over the last few months, he's been able to add to that team. And so now we're starting to have a wider net to cast and really start to be more proactive in our recruiting versus reactive and saying, oh no, I have a hole that I need filled. So now it's starting to build that pipeline. But I will say that his understanding and his knowledge of not just what the job is, but the bigger picture very much aligns. He knows what we're talking about, where we're headed, and what we're doing. So in all the conversations, in the recruiting before we get to the interview, that is just weaved in the conversation. And then as far as onboarding, what we do is we have an orientation day 1. And so they get to come to the North Store and meet with all of our HR team and some of the executives and some of the ownership. And then they get to go into their stores after. And again, day one, they're signing their pay plan, they're signing the minimum expectations. And it's just kind of part of our vocabulary now. It's not this unspoken or unclear list of requirements. It's very out loud. It's very in front of everyone. And so it's now just the language we speak.
That's great. Communication, extremely important. I don't know. So I know we know a lot of the same people. I know you've talked to Michael Barrett. He's a stud. Yeah. Love him to death. Sean Armour, BDC extraordinary.
We were there in Rockwall last week together.
Yeah. Also, I met through another organization, Eric Barbosa and Colby Joyner. Do you work real close with them? They do the same thing you do, but on the variable side, right?
That's right.
You have a really, I don't know all the Cavenders, but I see a lot of stuff from Rob.
Yep.
What is Rob Cavender's? Obviously he's a Cavender, so he's one of the owners. Yes. But is he real active and involved?
Extremely. He's our COO. So he is elbows deep in the daily with us. He was actually, his office is right around the corner from mine. Colby's is right there. Eric's is right there. So we're in this little bubble of offices, and we're not always all up here together. Oftentimes we're out and about in the stores, but Rob is extremely involved. We just had a conversation Tuesday, and we were following up on that right before I hopped on here, and I told him how much I appreciated the conversation, because originally I didn't like it and I wasn't on board with it. But as he continued, it was a perspective shift that I needed, which then allowed my strategy to change to accomplish some of the goals we were talking about. But we have very different personalities, and I think that complements each other and being able to see things in a different way. And then when we can have those conversations and put that perspective together, I think that's where we're really able to level up. So, speaking of the devil, he just walked by.
Being the COO, is he engaged with just top level management, or does he actually visit the stores, et cetera, and engage with people? He seems like a very personal guy.
He is, yes. So I would say, honestly, a little bit of both. So I would say the majority of his time is probably spent with us as executives and growing the business and just making sure that we're all on the same page. But we are really starting to see more just visits and phone calls with the people. He comes to every one of our service manager meetings, which I appreciate. And that's been from day one. So I took this role in July. And since then, if we're having a meeting where all my team is, we have 2 virtual or Zooms a month, and then we have 1 in person. And he attends every single one. He has gotten to know our team. He is it's been really fun. He actually was, we were just talking, he had an opportunity to call and congratulate all of our record earners for last month. And that was just a really nice thing because, I think maybe it's generational. But when I think about starting out as an advisor and then moving into management and then now moving into the executive level, think of the relationship that I've had with my owners and the perception and the feeling. So when you think of, so-and-so, the owner, is coming, does everyone send a quick message and tell everyone to clean up and everyone be on your best behavior? Or is it just this part of who we are? We're operating at the same level we would whether they're here or they're not. And that was something I'm grateful to really have learned early on in my career. And so just having that where now he is my partner. And so that's one of those things where I don't necessarily think in terms of he's an owner or
they don't freak out. Oh God, my God, gotta get cleaned up.
Right? Yeah. No. But I also try to remember thinking of how did I feel 13 years ago, and thinking about my valets and thinking about my technicians and my advisors and my managers, and do they feel the same that I feel with him? Do they feel and in all of aspects? Like I'm one of those people now that I remember when I was starting out, people would be like, "Oh, so and so's coming." Like, wait, it's me. It's you don't have to.
It's Allie.
Yeah, But so also say that I think as we continue to level up, I think one of the other things we're really working on is values-based leadership. And so making sure that as an organization, the conversations that we have keep tying back to our values and to our purpose. And same in building those relationships, growing is that he doesn't have to know every single person's story in our organization, but it's really nice to see the engagement and involvement in the stores.
I'll bet.
Yeah.
About 3 years ago, and I don't even know if you remember this. Well, you probably do. About 3 years ago, I was, I don't get on the road near as much as I used to because our company is growing so fast, but I was down in Houston, San Antonio, because I have a lot of clients down there at the time. And you'd seen somebody before, Bob Charbonneau.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, you know what? I'm just going to stop in. And I was in between meetings. I'm going to see if I can just say hello to this Allie Peters person I heard all about. And I walked to the back, and this was at the Land Rover Jaguar store. And it looks like maybe that's where you're at now.
No, I'm at the Buick GMC North store right now.
All right. But I stopped in. You were there. You were talking to somebody else. Your door was open. One of your advisors, you were the FixedOPS director of that store. And one of your advisors said, how can I help you? I said, yeah, I'd like to just quickly say hello to Allie Peters if she's in. And I think you overheard me. Who knows? That was 3 years ago. But you waved me in. And you were exactly like you are right now. You were inviting and welcoming, and I was literally only in there for about 45 seconds, just wanted to say hi. But you allowed me, you invited me in, and just the way you did it with your hand gesture and your smile was invite. That's the Allie Peters I know and continue to know to this day, all these years later. I don't even know if you remember that or not.
I do,
Oh, do you?
and it's yes. That's so sweet. I appreciate it hearing it from your perspective, because that was really nice. Thank you.
Well, I think that you're just genuine and real, and I've dominated all this. So Charity, I could go down wormholes. And Charity, she does some real digging, and you'd be surprised at some stuff she comes up with. So Charity?
Yeah. Well, I always like to kind of dig into leadership and what makes a good leader, and what are some of the things that you can do to become a better leader. If your career goal is to become a leader, what does that look like? So I noticed that you've obviously gotten a lot of awards, but you're also giving a lot of awards. And that's a great way to show accomplishment and appreciation to your team. But have you found that there are any auxiliary benefits to handing out awards to your team members?
Wow, great question.
Yeah, I would say yes. And I think about this too often, and I love the parallels of my life and what I'm talking about and doing just even as recent as this week and some of these questions. But yes, so for me, I think awards are not everyone wants them, not everyone cares about them, not everyone needs them. But I will say that as part of the desire of my heart, which is to grow teams and develop people, the awards are a fun way to do that. And I think where oftentimes you have the ability to pay someone a bonus, or they can earn something monetarily for accomplishing a goal, the money goes and gets spent, and then 6 months later it's almost like out of sight, out of mind. And so I think for us, some of the fun stuff that we've done are the ones where they get to have something physical that's going to be in front of them. They get to have something. We're working on a traveling trophy right now. My team doesn't know that, but surprise. And so being able to physically give that to someone or have to give it away. Just that, trying that gamification and making things an experience and a memory that way. I think that we also, as we level up with the teams that we have and the departments, I think we have a lot more people on our teams that enjoy that as well and are competitive. And so we are we have this competition that we do with all of our advisors, and we do it within another organization. And so they're competing with advisors across the country. And and it's been so much fun because now some of our top performers who were the top performers by pretty significant margins now have people to compete with. And so we're seeing that that fierceness come out, and they're wanting to level up. And so I would say, yes, I think for me, even something as small as like a handwritten card, it's not necessarily an award. And sometimes it's behind the scenes, but there are just the ripple effect of how that feels. Like we talk to our advisors and our sales associates and our technicians about making the customer experience one that they can't stop telling their friends about because it was so out of the ordinary.
Yep.
And from my perspective, my team is my customer, and I want to be able to give that experience where they go home and when they're sitting at dinner or they're out with friends and their friends are complaining about their jobs or their bosses or the people that they work with, I want mine to go, oh, I'm almost guilty to say this, but I really like where I work. Yeah. I have really good people around me. And that's
don't tell anybody.
Right. And then we have a referral bonus, so come and work with us because it's a lot of fun. So I guess my official answer is yes, I do see a benefit.
That's great. So what do you think, we've met leaders who are sort of, tough stainless steel leaders, and we've met very kind and generous leaders, just all types. In your opinion, what qualities make a good leader? How would you sort of define a good leader yourself?
Yes. So to me, the definition of a good leader is someone who is fair and consistent. And I was taught that by my very first manager out of college in this industry. And he told me, he said, fair does not mean equal.
Wow.
Right.
It's true.
Right.
That's pretty heavy right there, actually.
Right. So fair does not mean equal. And your entire team should know what version of you they're going to get day in, day out.
Let me guess. At this very moment, another vendor is walking up to your lot with something shiny to sell. Before you head back and hide in your office, let me take a minute to tell you about my friend Dawn Pelham and my friends over at Global Dealer Solutions. They exist to help you find solutions to problems, some of which you might not even know you have. Best of all, they can manage as many products and services as needed for you, helping cut down on multiple vendor visits and distractions. And if you need anything, you have one number to call or text for the response all dealers like to hear. On it, GDS understands that successful dealerships require more than a set it and forget it mentality. And they'll be with you every step of the way, from setup, implementation, training, and support. And if necessary, they'll even cancel non-performing products for you. No pushback, no arguments, just a solutioneer executing course corrections as needed. Check out gdsdealers.com to learn the difference and set up a time to meet. Let's see if they're a good fit for you.
Not that we can't have bad days or good days, but if I'm going to be a fair and consistent leader, my entire team knows what they're going to get from me when they make certain choices, good ones or question mark ones. They're going to consistently, I'm across the board, I'm the same. And then fair, which again does not necessarily mean equal. And I had this conversation last week with one of my newer managers, and we were just talking through some examples. And I said, okay, well, I don't have kids, but you do have kids. Okay, so that's fine. That doesn't necessarily matter one way or the other, but
that's not fair.
Right? That's a lot of my friends with kids sometimes say that when I say, oh, I just brunch and I got a massage after I slept till 11.
That's not fair.
Yeah, not fair. But and then we were walking through it. I said, okay, but if we both were in the exact same job in the exact same role, and you came late 3 times a week because you were having an issue getting your kid to school, and I came late 1 time that week and I got in trouble, but you didn't? Is that fair? And so it was this brain of like, well, I always thought that you had to have a little bit of flexibility for outside of situations. This flexibility is a different conversation. I'm not saying that because you have a kid and you had an issue and you were there 10 minutes late that you're fired. That's not it. But is it fair that I got in trouble 1 time for being late because I don't have kids, but this person has done it 3 times and they're not in trouble? Well, no, that's not consistent. That's not. So it's this conversation of, if you're a smoker and once an hour you go out for 5 minutes and you get a break, but I'm not a smoker and I don't get a break, is that fair or consistent? No.
Wow.
So we talked about that. And it was this idea of, I'm not saying you make the smoker stop smoking, go let them do it. But if they get 5 minutes every hour of every working shift, me, the non-smoker, maybe you give me those 2 hours back and I can leave early on Thursday by 2 hours. Is it equal? It's not equal. Is it fair? Yeah. I mean, 5 minutes over time versus. So this idea of understanding what fair and consistent looks like, I think you can be both. I think you can be kind, and I think you can have a big heart and genuinely care about your people. And I think that you can have extremely high expectations and you can hold your team to that. And if it keeps coming back to fair and consistent, then I think that you become a leader that people want to work for and work with, because you can have both of those things and still accomplish all of your goals if everyone understands what's expected of them.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's one of the best answers I think we've ever got.
Ever. And we're not saying that. You can go back to, I don't know how, there's a lot of them, but never quite heard it put that way. Wow. Fair. It's sometimes, not all the time, for me, every day, learning something, listening to people, something that keeps me in the right frame of mind, because it's so easy to twist, right?
Mm-hmm.
And many, many, many years ago, I used to suffer, and still do occasionally, from terminal uniqueness. And I really didn't, and I understand more today than I ever have in any other time in my life, that I just need to run my own race and stay in my own lane. Because when I start comparing myself to other people about this fair thing, well, that's not right, or that didn't happen to me, I don't know all the variables and all the circumstances.
Right.
And I could waste an enormous amount of time and go down a wormhole. And then I also realized at the same moment that what I say and what I do has power, and people around me are watching. And regardless, they say, well, it's my problem. It's nobody else's problem. No. Everything we say and give power to, and everything we do, does affect everybody around us. And I don't think people really know that. So if someone comes to you, they probably don't anymore because of how you've educated them, but about this fair thing. Well, so-and-so did this, and you put a stop to that pretty quick, don't you?
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe you try to reason and explain them, so maybe they have an opportunity to learn.
Yes. So I will say, I absolutely agree wholeheartedly. It happens much less than it used to because of the awareness. I strive to be transparent, sometimes overly transparent. And
I'm that way too.
But I sincerely believe when people understand why we do what we do, then we're a united front. Typically, they may not agree, but if they understand what the why is, they're almost always going to say, okay, yeah, that makes sense. I don't like it, but it makes sense. Let's go. So with that being said, almost always when it happens now, it is when a person is being held to a standard that they already agreed on, that they are now falling short. And when that happens, instead of taking extreme ownership and accountability for their part, they deflect and say, well, what about him or what about her? And typically the conversation goes like this. This is about you. This has nothing to do with them. And just like I don't share any of our conversations that we have privately with your team, those conversations that are had with your team are not being shared with you. So let's worry about you. Let's fix whatever the issue is, or let's address this, correct it. And then we don't have to have the conversation again. So you take care of you, I'll take care of the rest.
Pretty simple. Like you said, it's a deflection, and it could go off into a wormhole. They could take you all the way around the block or even around the city and still not resolve what it was that they started off talking.
Right. And yet you still chose to wear the wrong shoes today to work.
Yeah.
I mean, like, that's why we're having this conversation. Or you didn't call your customer back, or you didn't tighten the slug nut, or whatever the reason we're having the conversation has nothing to do with anyone else except for this. And so a lot of one of our slogans we like to say, or, an Allieism that I did not coin, but I like to use.
Oh, you have an Allieism, huh?
Well, I have so many, but is facts, not feelings. So we talk about that a lot, is that as a leader, when by the time you're having a conversation with someone, it's not a surprise. It should not be a surprise to that person that you're having that conversation.
They know, don't they?
Yes. If we do our job, if we're fair and we're consistent, if we are consistently holding our team accountable to that, is celebrating the wins, telling people we see them, catch them doing something right, then they know when they're not doing something right. So it's not a surprise. They know. They made a choice. And if they don't know, then that's a different type scenario that ideally we're not going to have as we move forward and level up with a lot of the team members that we have. So everybody knows, if they don't, in the overall, everything that you do on the front end, on the back end, doesn't make a difference. The most important thing is the client, the customer, the guest. That's it. Now, if your people are happy like that, you automatically know that they're going to provide that same experience. They're going to smile and welcome them. I really do believe that, instead of the beating them down and, hey, you're not taking care of the customer, and then they feel like dog doo-doo, Right.
No, that's great. Wow. Some of the way you explain that stuff is really amazing. So where does that come from? Where does these Allieisms come from? Obviously part of life experiences.
Yes.
And you didn't learn all that in college. The enthusiasm that you have, which is very contagious, et cetera, didn't come from college either. That had to start somewhere else. Is there a story behind that?
Well, I mean, I think I came out this way. So I would say my mom and dad made me this way. But I will say my mom tells a story, and it makes me laugh even still. My mom was a teacher, so she knew my teachers when I was in school. They were her friends, and she knew the principals. And the principal, when I was in kindergarten, maybe the counselor, and maybe not the principal, the counselor, who's also one of my mom's friends because my mom became a counselor. So yes, I'm from a small town. So the counselor called my mom when I was in kindergarten and said, "Shelly, I think you can stop with working on the self-esteem at home because she's got it." Because at 5, I wanted to be the teacher. I wanted to run the show. I was in charge. I was going to be the leader. I didn't let other people talk because I had all the answers. So I think just from a very early age, my parents did. They said I could be whatever I wanted to be, and they raised me to be extremely independent. She had kindergartners reading to me when I was in her belly. So I think maybe I heard her teaching kids when I was being made, and I don't know, but I wasn't pretty enthusiastic and full of energy.
So was there a time where maybe it wasn't like that? In all the things you experienced in life where maybe you lost some of that, or you started doing things that weren't up your alley, and where you have like maybe a fork in the road or a pivoting moment where, hey, I need to take my life back. This is not me.
Yeah.
Is there one of those in your life?
Yeah, absolutely. So it actually was not long after you came to my office. So
wow.
Yeah, and I've spoken about this publicly. I've spoken about it with
Oh, that's me. I had that impact on Allie, just so everybody knows. No, I'm just kidding. Go ahead.
Yeah, Russell came into my life, and I really was
Yeah.
No, so I had been with an organization before I joined this group. And really my kind of formative years of management happened with that group. And I was enjoying the people I worked with and the people I worked for and the team that we had built and the success that we were having. And I got recruited to come here so that I had the opportunity to learn FixedOPS when I moved from service director to FixedOPS. I loved the family. I loved the organization. And I love what the opportunities were that I had down the road. Mm-hmm. And so just some really exciting big goals when I said yes to coming. And I don't know, a few months in, something like that time-wise, there was a structural change in some of the leadership in the executive level. And I tried really hard. That sounded like a country song. Sorry. I did my best to stay as positive and enthusiastic as I could during that time, but there were definitely some struggles. And I recognized that I had learned at some point in my life, don't know whether it was when I was younger, older, in the business, before the business, don't know. But I think because I had such joy and such energy and enthusiasm for life, I didn't put a lot of effort into spending time with the things that didn't bring me joy. Because I did have another Allieism, which was choosing joy. Choose joy. I mean, it's a choice. It's not.
It is a choice.
Yeah. And so I think that I took that kind of to an extreme, not aware of that. And so there are these feelings that apparently I had stuffed down or just stuffed away or pushed away. And there was just this moment where I finally realized that they had been stuffed in there and they all came out. And that was a very hard day, a very hard chapter. It took my husband, who knows me better than anybody, calling me out on it. And he said, like, hey, what's going on? Because apparently I snapped at him. And he's like, that's not who you are. You don't snap at people. Like, that's what's wrong. Nothing's wrong. Well, of course, something's wrong. And then
when somebody says, I'm okay, I'm fine, there's something wrong. Yeah.
In the middle of a cafe in the middle of nowhere, I just started crying. And I guess apparently there is something wrong. I didn't even know that I was upset. And so, again, it had nothing to do with the organization, the ownership, the family. That's really all I wanted to work for were those people. And there are these layers that just kind of got a little muddy. And I think I just kept pushing through or pretending everything was okay until my body said it's not, and it all came out. But I will say that was probably one of the hardest things that has ever happened to me, because I recognized that it wasn't just impacting me at work or at home. I mean, it was the whole kit and caboodle, right? So once that became at the forefront of my mind and I recognized it, then I started doing the work. And now I am not only back to the same enthusiastic, energetic, joyful Allie, but I think I'm a more evolved and a better version of that, because I can still recognize the feelings, but instead of ignoring them or putting them aside, it's something that I work on or work through and then can kind of resolve versus just letting them pile up and them showing up at a cafe.
Thank you for sharing that, really and truly, because if you stuff, it just keeps coming back. It all comes out in the wash eventually.
Yeah.
And instead of, that's, it's just one of the, no. They're signs, and well, good for you.
Thank you.
Because a lot of people don't.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, I will say that, like I mentioned, that was probably the hardest time of my life. I mean, truthfully, I look at that and I think about the work that I had to do and I continue to do on myself and in my family and my marriage. I mean, just all of that. And I think that it makes some people uncomfortable when people, like for me, and I can speak for myself, when I started to recognize the way that I was handling those feelings and I went to adjust how I handled them, it led me into some conversations that were uncomfortable because I hadn't had them before.
Mm-hmm.
And had I had them before, we probably wouldn't be in the place that we're in now.
Right.
But because I finally understand that larger picture and how important it is, going back to communication, I think it has changed the dynamic in every aspect of my life. I've been able to stand up for myself in a working environment, say, I don't like what's going on here. I do like what's going on here. Can we work towards a resolution? Which ultimately, everything changed when I got my voice back. My marriage is the best it's ever been. I mean, just my friends and just life looks so different now. And I'm really grateful for that. So
good. Great.
Thank y'all.
You for sharing.
I didn't know you were going to get into therapy session with Allie.
Yeah,
Here we are.
no. We like therapy here at W. We really, it's really important to really protect this or to deal with stuff that comes up.
Mhm.
And, for a long time, people said my expectations were way too high. And then I realized those were some very troublesome times in my life, but it really wasn't the expectation. It was how I acted and reacted to them when I didn't hit that particular objective. But the people that were telling me that were the ones that said, no, you can't do that. I tried that. That won't work. And I don't even want to tell you where they're at. They're not in a happy place. I can tell you that because they're listening to the wrong people. For me, it's really important to protect. I gravitate towards people like you. I do. And I think other people do too. And some of them, like we've asked them, what makes Allie? And people need to hear that kind of stuff. I think that's really important, but it is what you listen to, what you read, and who you surround yourself with. And, it sounds like you have an amazing husband that called you out that day and said, hey, this isn't you. And you didn't get, and you realized it, but you took ownership. It's not somebody else's fault. That's a first sign when I'm talking with people, when everything that's going on is not their fault. You don't understand. Well, I understand you're not mature because that's not a mature attitude. You need to take responsibility for where you're at. Well, it's not my fault. No, you're exactly where you're at and making what you're making and doing what you're doing because of the choices that you made. Well, I didn't have a choice. That was a choice, not to have a choice. It was still a choice. Anyway. And that's who I enjoy surrounding myself with people today. So I imagine a lot of people want your time. And I think that's great. Charity, I'm sorry.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to throw a wrench in this conversation.
Right. So,
Allie, why have I heard a rumor that you're an Oprah stalker?
What? See that? Oh,
okay. So if anybody's listening, I have a mission. I would love to meet Oprah. So share this with your friends so they can share with their friends and make this happen. Okay. So the reason that you heard this rumor is also because there was a time in my life that I wanted to be Oprah. I love what she did. I don't even know that I was old enough to understand what she was saying. I could hear the words, but I think I was in elementary school. But I love the fact that she had her own show. Hey, that was something that was cool.
Yeah.
And she got to help people when she would get, you get at this, you get at it. That always sounded fun. Like I wanted to do that. So that was great. And she got to talk to people and with people every day for her job. So there was a period in my life that I really wanted to be Oprah when I grew up. I wanted pretty much to just let her retire and I was just going to slide in. It was going to be the Allie show.
So does everybody understand she now does not want to be Oprah, but she would still like to meet Oprah?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oprah, right. You can do you. I have found my being. I get to talk to people all the time. I get to say, you get a car, and I get to come on a show. I'm like living my dream out. Right?
Oh my goodness. Well, it also helps too, and will help get the word out. Maybe she'll hear this.
Yeah.
She owns her own network. I think she's got a few mansions going on. I don't know what her net worth is, but I'm sure it's up there.
Gold,
well,
right?
At one time it was $1 billion. So she's phenomenal. I used to watch her all the time. I watched her get started in the early days and where she evolved to, which is really amazing. And I know we're pushing here, and there's some really great, a few other questions I want to make sure I get. And I want you to ask this question, Charity, about right underneath the Oprah stalker.
Okay. Well, I'll combine a couple of them
All right.
so we don't run out of time.
Oh yeah.
So we're going into women in automotive. What are some things you think you have contributed to? And have you seen, like, over the course of your career, you've been here a number of years, any significant sea changes that have happened to women who work in automotive?
Yeah. So I will say that I absolutely have seen a change. I'm grateful because when I started, I worked for a company who was a bit, it's funny because they're very traditional in a lot of aspects, but they were progressive in the fact that they had quite a few women. So day one, I had a sales manager who was a woman, and then I watched her move up into GM. And before I left that organization,
Wow.
there were 2 female GMs. So that was something that it wasn't that out of the ordinary for me to be surrounded by women. There was always at least 2 or 3 of us on the service drive at a group of 9, sometimes even more.
Wow.
So yeah. So for me now, getting to watch, I'm really seeing kind of from a different lens because our organization didn't have as many women as the last group that I worked for. And so we're starting to bring in some more. And it's been really fun to get to see kind of the movement from, a receptionist or a BDC associate or a cashier moving into the advisor role. I have a few like that. I just got to promote one of my female advisors into a lane manager. I have, when I left JLR, I got to promote my manager my lane manager up to service manager. And I've been able to watch her whole career. So I think it's that, again, going back to that ripple effect, we're starting to see more and more. And most of the people that are on my management team understand that women bring a different perspective to the service drive, and with the right person, their success typically is can outshine some of our male colleagues. So.
What? No, I believe it. I've seen it. They're really, if they get that opportunity with somebody under your tutelage, I bet they're rock stars.
Thank you. Yeah. And that's a plan. And, I think for me, it's making sure sincerely it's the right person in the right position. And so I love the fact that I get to be kind of a staple in the women in automotive community now, and I truly am grateful for that because it's really only been probably a year or 2 that I've started to really get involved in it and understand kind of at a different level than I did before. But I want to make sure that we're putting the right people in the right spots, not just because they're a male or a female, but because sincerely they're the right person for that spot on the bus. And so, but it is fun. It's super fun to now get to go to events and meetings, trainings. And it used to be very often that I was the only female in the room. And now we're starting to see that change. And so wanting to make sure that I kind of scoop up people that I meet along the way and get to help lead the way for them as well.
I'm sure that was great. I'm sure you've been challenged in a different way because you're female, and I obviously don't know what that's like, but it maybe in different circumstances. But it's to maintain your composure, your attitude, and to just continue to move. The ones that try to hold you down or chauvinistic, it's changing. It is changing. Because some of these other rooms, and I know got some of these other rooms and things that I participate in, I hear the same stuff, and I try to move them in a different direction. But it's like, are you kidding me? When I started selling cars in 1985, I'm hearing the same stuff like it's something new to you guys, but it's been. I got a 1950s training manual from Ford that's still talking about the guest, the customer, the client, and the road to the sale. Nothing's really changed. It's all about the customer.
Right.
Quit trying to reinvent the wheel. Just help them find what their needs, wants, and desires are, and show them a way to get it. And they make it so complicated. It sounds like you make it real easy. Have fun. Get excited. Take care of the client. You take care of them, and they're gonna transfer that. That was great. Go ahead, Jerry.
One more, yeah. And we'll jump topics again. So pre-zombie virus, post-zombie virus. Have you noticed a difference? Like anything sweeping changes? Does the world look different from your perspective?
Oh, I love that.
That was a good one.
I would say yes and no. So I think that I forget that it's been 4 years. Isn't that crazy?
Wow.
I mean, I feel like I just blinked and it was, yesterday. But I would say as an overall statement, to echo Russell's point, I think the job is the same. The process is the same. I think that if we can stick to the blocking and tackling of what service operations truly are, that there's not a ton truly that has changed. Now, outside of that, I do think that we are now more proactive in trying to be creative and have alternatives to how we accomplish the goal. So, and I've used this, and I stole this from April Simmons, so this is not a me.
Hey, you stole it from April. We're going to edit that out, April. No.
But I love it because what she talked about last year at a conference we went to was that when we think about our customer, if we think about groceries, you can go to the store and get your groceries. You can order it curbside, drive by, and they'll put them in your car. Or you can order it and it's delivered to your house.
Absolutely.
But all three ways are still getting groceries. And
That's
so
right.
for me, I think that the biggest change is how we, our flexibility and our proactiveness in being able to meet the customer where they are.
That's
so
it.
That would be, I think, probably the biggest change that we're seeing or that I've seen.
Yeah, no, I think leadership plays an important part of it, obviously, as well. Instead of the, intimidate people, instead of, I think really almost as important as breathing air. People just want to know they count, they matter, they make a difference, and they're part of something bigger. You actually transfer that really well, in my opinion. And that's not just that's from what I've seen personally and from other people in the industry that I know and how they talk about you. And it's consistent, just like you are consistent. So thank you for all you do. And
fair and consistent.
Yeah, right. Thank you.
So what we got about a minute or two left. What would Allie like to say? Is there something on your heart that you would like to let the people in the audience know? Because there's going to be a lot of them, and we hope this is going to even open up more. But is there anything you'd like to say that's on your heart?
Well, honestly, I just want to say thank you for having me, and I appreciate it. I started doing podcasts exactly 1 year ago this month.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's I'm only a 12-month into this, and I will say from the first time I got on with Kaylee on the Parts Girl podcast, she was my very first, to now, I feel very grateful for a platform to be able to speak about the passion I have for what I do and the people I do it with and the people I do it for. And I also really am passionate about the holistic part of the person. And so I have kind of derailed a little bit from the topic, so to speak, but I'm very grateful for that, because I think that if we can talk out loud without fear or embarrassment or worry, I think we all end up being better and just enjoying our lives more and being the best version of ourselves, which then impacts the people around us. So I just want to say thank you for letting me tell my story, and I appreciate it.
Well, we're gonna. I don't know exactly when this releases. Charity, it's probably a month and a half. I don't know, but we're honored because it was rough. We started this during right smack dab in the middle of the height of COVID. Mm-hmm. And one of the first people that Charity opened the door for and started collaborating with is Kaylee. About, it was cross promoting each other's services. And that's how I met her. And now she's the parts girl and she's worldwide and all that stuff. She's amazing. Mm-hmm. Anyway, that was really awesome. Listen, thank you once again. Hey, Allie Peters, Vice President, Executive of Cavender Fixed Operations. Did I say that right? I mean, there's so many different ways Allie, and most of you know her, but no, she is, she's way up there. And I don't know if you could ever reach out to her, connect with her on LinkedIn. When this starts coming out, like her, love her, share it, make comments. But there's a lot of people that need to hear this. She said some pretty amazing stuff that blew me and Charity away on leadership. Really, really powerful on is it fair? I mean, that was really, really powerful. Thank you so much. And this actually concludes another very successful episode of WTF. And that's what? The Fixed Ops. Allie, thank you so much for coming on. Charity, thank you so much for what you do. Thank you.
Thank you, Allie.